Everybody, welcome back to Team Engineered with myself, Kyle, and the wonderful Jade, talking all things engineering your team or your engineering team, however the fact may be.
I thought there was another F coming out of you there,
Oh,
Carl.
I wasn't going to swear yet. It's too early to be swearing yet.
Two? Really? Um,
Yeah. Well, I guess it has been a challenging week, but we don't need to swear. It's Friday. I'm going on holidays tomorrow, so I can't complain too much.
yeah. You're, I think you're, no, I was going to swear. Because I believe you said, fuck it, I'm just going on holidays.
Fuck it, I'm just going to Queensland. Maybe.
Maybe. Potentially, if they let us out, if we're allowed to cross borders.
If we're allowed to cross the border and however all of that works, but we're just gonna give it a go and see what happens.
Yeah. Awesome. So we were toying up earlier on in the week. We're like, what do we want? What do we want to do the show on this week? Because we've got a whole list of topics that we want to do. Lots of ideas, lots of things that come up, and we usually do. It's usually sort of on Tuesdays in the team huddle and marketing huddle. We're like, okay, what's come up for us this week that we want to discuss? Like, what's been a poignant point of topic? And we were both like, actually, I don't know. Nothing's really coming through what we should go with first, or nothing that was specific. And usually it's like, oh yeah, that happened, let's run with that. And then all of a sudden I get this random message from you going, I'm listening to a podcast of Joe Rogan and Quentin Tarantino. And I'm like, what could go wrong with that?
And who wouldn't want to listen to that? Like it just screams, turn me on and let's hear what the story is. So
Yeah.
it was, I have to say, it wasn't as messed up as I thought it was going to be. And maybe
Well,
maybe
you seem a little disappointed.
maybe Quentin Tarantino is not quite as messed up as we all thought. But I guess what really struck me, and it really applies to leading a team or leading a business or anything else, was Quentin Tarantino back in the early 90s absolutely revolutionized the movie industry, and did it off the back of, you can't do that. You just
Can't do it.
turning. Yeah, you can't do that. No, you can't do that. And even to the point of casting Patrick Swayze into that role. Yeah,
Patrick
he was
Swayze?
told no.
John Travolta.
Sorry. Oh, there was
It's been
another
one of those weeks.
conversation about. There was another conversation. So John Travolta into that role, and you can't do that. Like he's the wrong person. He only does
Yeah.
talking babies and stuff.
Yeah,
Like,
bubblegum film.
but as it turns out, was absolutely the perfect person for that role. So it left me thinking about having your spot, your DNA in your team and your DNA in your business or whatever you're trying to create. Because at the end of the day, that's why you're amazing. That's why you're doing what you're doing, and that's why you should be leading that team, is to bring that DNA. So that's what led me to think about this week. How do you bring that into your team? How do you why is that important? Because we're all used to being told, you can't do that, don't do that, that's wrong, and bringing it into the team and really sharing that with the world.
I love it. I actually got I'm not even halfway through the podcast with Joe and Quentin, but last night you know me, Kyle. You know that there's always a running joke of how long, like there's bets on how long I'll make it through a movie, because it's usually between 10 and 15 minutes before I'm down for the count. Well, after we got through Reservoir Dogs last night, and I was like, you do realize we're watching Pulp Fiction now, right? It's like,
Nice.
you're still alive? So I rolled into Pulp as well, because it's my favourite. But there was so many things that were coming up for me in terms of building teams and profiling and all of that. So there's probably a couple of elements that I want to run with this podcast. But if we circle back around with what you were saying, so Quentin Tarantino was told, because Pulp Fiction came after Reservoir Dogs, so he kind of proved to them then, even though they're like, you've got to take this out and you can't do it, and he's like, fuck you, I'm going to do it anyway. And and then it came to doing Pulp Fiction, and they said, okay, you can write a massive list of who you want to cast, and once we've signed off on that, you can go with anyone. And so they made the massive list, and I linked this little piece to recruitment, right? So you should always have a massive list of who you potentially want on your team, and he literally called it his talent pool, and he went to Harvey and he's like, yeah, you can keep everyone on the list except for two, one of them being John Travolta, and him standing firm that he's like, well, I didn't even write the part for Travolta at that point, like it was written for Michael, whatever his name is, but he's like, but it was kind of like when he said no, then I was like, it's him, it's gotta be him, and like. But going through and the fact of having a massive talent pool and a list and thinking about it, and then thinking about standing your ground and where you're willing to stand your ground for something, and how you infuse the uniqueness of you into something. So there was a couple of layers of that, like have the talent pool, know that you've got a bank of people, building the credibility in advance to be able to stand your ground, like you've earned your stripes almost to be able to go into bat. But when it comes to the infusing of the uniqueness that is you, like you can't watch a Tarantino film and not know it's a Tarantino film, right? Like
that's right.
And what he said was what I loved, and this is about that uniqueness and the fact that it's a uniquely Tarantino thing. Is when people are like, oh, you're trying to copy Pulp Fiction, or they're making movies, and aren't you pissed off that people are trying to copy your movies? And he's like, no, I'm not pissed off. I'm stoked. I created a genre.
I created this. I've shifted the whole industry, and that's the amazing thing to think about is that he did, like early 90s, absolutely shifted the industry.
Yeah, and created a whole sub-genre of gangster films, and then there was this like. What I think that there is, though, is there's like that DNA of a Tarantino movie of what makes it a Tarantino movie. And like that's what you can have with your culture DNA, right? Like it's almost like to be a film like his, it's got to have like the awesome dialect, and it's got the certain way it's shot and the way the scenes go between, and certain level of violence, and but there's even like theming and music, like it's got an essence like a business should, like with their culture. So that it's like, there is some consistency to how it rolls, but it is unique, and it comes from the head down, right? So it comes from Tarantino and Tarantino's uniqueness and willing to stand his ground and willing to take the risk. Like when, I love the story with Reservoir, when Miramax bought Reservoir Dogs, and they're like, everybody can come see this film until it gets to the torture scene. And then as soon as if you put the torture scene in, you lose all the women. Except for this one, obviously. But you just, your viewership cuts, and you're like niching down on your audience. And for Tarantino to go, do you know what? Yeah, I'm gonna niche down, but it reminded me of Seth Godin saying like minimum viable audience, and like speak to only those that you want to speak to. Like it's cut the crap, be who you're for. Don't try to please everybody. Only be for who you are for. And him, like, it's kind of like he totally profiled his avatar, and he's like, you know what? I'm okay with not being mass audience. I'm okay with not appealing to the women. I'm okay with lasering my focus in, because the people who get it will get it. And then that's
my movie.
And fuck it, it's my movie. And by doing that, that's how if he did, that's like a defining point in time. If he didn't in that moment say, no, the torture scene stays. No, I'm happy to lose that viewership. That genre would never have been created. And we would never have had Pulp Fiction. And that would just be a travesty to all humanity.
And, so for me, what it really brought me back to thinking about, and I think you've probably been through the same thing in your business life, where you work in this business, you work in this team, and you sort of start to wonder, do I need to do this because that's what everybody does? Do I need to have a Monday morning team meeting because that's what everyone does with a team?
Or, that's what you're supposed to do. Start Mondays off by kicking everyone's ass and making sure they know what they've got to do.
Yeah, or do I have to, do I have to have act a particular way with my shareholders or with my stakeholders in the business, or do I have to dress a particular way because I'm the boss, and do I have to answer the phone a particular way and have a stuffy suit, and all of those sorts of things. It sort of it wound me back to that point where I know myself, where it was sort of like, geez, I've got to do all of these things because this is my life now. This is where I am.
Mm.
And really what I should have done was continued marching on what I was doing.
Yeah, 100%. And so many of those elements you just said there, in terms of this is how everyone else is doing it. Like Monday morning meetings. Like I think I did a rant a little while ago, death to the Monday morning meeting. Because no one wants, like, if you want a way to demotivate your staff and get them coming in like dreading Mondays and being flat and probably with a hangover, serve them up a beating every Monday morning. That'll fucking make them want to get out of bed and race on into you, right? That might make them want to drink on a Sunday. But
I used to work for a guy, and he, it was his joke, but it was actually 100% true, that his staff would walk in with crash hats on, like motorbike helmets, on a Monday morning, ready for the beatings. And it started off as a joke, but that was the culture that he built.
Yeah, and ego probably made him want to keep it too, right?
He was a very short dude.
No. Yeah. Shh. Shh. But like, one thing I love about even your team, like huddles is on Tuesday. Like, because everyone's got shit they got to get done on Monday. We don't want them coming in thinking they like, oh god, we're gonna start with another meeting. Our meetings are a little bit different anyway. Like, there's a whole nother spin on that. But what I do challenge everyone to, like, maybe if you're watching right now, start making a list. What's the things that you do in your business that you kind of do unconsciously because that's how you thought business was, or when you work somewhere else, that's how a team must run. Monday morning meetings, Friday afternoon check-in, or like, and wearing a suit, or wearing a certain style of clothing, or having a certain type of behavior. Or the one that we see really commonly is, as soon as someone steps up to be the leader of a team, their whole personality changes, and the people they were friends with anymore, they're not friends with them anymore, and they talk to them differently, or they feel like they can no longer share what's going on in their world because now I'm the boss. I can't interact with the mere mortals, and I can't be seen as a mere mortal. And
it's something that comes up so much. You see it so much where someone in the team, they're let's say they're promoted, and it's probably not a great description, but they're promoted into the team leader's role, and they instantly have a change of mindset, but so do their team. And really, I think it's a complete misconception of what the roles should be. Gone are the days of the Monday morning kick everyone in the arse, and Friday afternoon kick them even harder because we didn't do it all. Really what we need to be thinking about, and we talk about it in our own team, is that team leader is the hurdle clearer. They're the one that's clearing the way so that everyone else can get the shit done and do the things that they need to do. And what we need our teams to see is that they're a spot for us to work to. There's someone else that we can lean on to help us get our jobs done, not someone that's going to be kicking us because shit's not happening.
Yeah. And the leader should be really going, where did I clear the hurdles to set them up? Like, what else could I have done to set them up to be able to get it done? A little bit of, we've talked about extreme ownership before, but going, okay, well, if you're constantly having to kick a team, you need to, like, the definition of insanity. If you're kicking them every Monday, kicking them every time you have a meeting, what needs to change? Where does the difference need to be? Why isn't it the message getting heard, or like, are the goalposts unrealistic? Like, have you looked at the happiness level of the team? Because we know happiness is the greatest hack to productivity and profitability. So, like, if you're constantly making them miserable and using a stick and it's not working, well, it's not working. Try something else. What else could you do? How could you inject a bit of you into it? Because the thing that we're finding, like, we've heard this all as well, right? People don't leave companies, they leave managers. And sorry, business owners, that means they leave you. Like, if you're the owner, they're leaving you as well. So you got to think about how can you show up authentically as you? Because unless you're a complete dickhead, right? The minute you can start showing more of you and being more authentic, the trust level goes up with the team too, right? And the one thing, like, I've been doing one-on-ones for the last 2 weeks and getting feedback from team members across a couple of different companies. And the number one thing that has come out of these is that the story that they tell themselves about what's happening with the manager. And I think I've mentioned this to you because you're a star profile, and I've got another client that's star profile and has a bunch of opposite sort of profile in their team as well. And stars don't realize the energy and the magnitude of what their energy does to people. And so they tell a big story to themselves about what's happening if the leader's energy is off and they do radiate at that level. And so some of the feedback has been that as soon as they know, like, if something else is happening in the background, like, I'm busy, I've got this on, or something's gone south in my personal life, or like me having to share to my team just yesterday that Steve's broken his ankle and I've still got a migraine. I'm not avoiding you guys, or I'm not snapping. Like, I was quite short on some messages, I realized, because my eyes were hurting. So I normally voice memo, but then I was in the hospital and I couldn't do that. And then I was like, oh shit, the story that they're telling themselves, because they don't know what's going on, could be that I'm pissed off because something was supposed to get done that didn't get done. And they were telling me not to worry doing something else because they dropped the ball. But I was like, I'm totally fine with it. It actually clears my plate for something anyway, so I wasn't pissed. But the meaning, like the story they could have been telling themselves because they didn't know what was going on in the background, might have been, I'm pissed off, I'm angry, now I don't want to tell you something else because now it's going to compound. And as soon as I was like, oh, by the way, everyone's like, oh, how can we help? And when I was doing those one-on-ones for the last few weeks, each one of the staff had said that their compassion level when they found out about the other thing that was going on for the leaders in their home life was like, what can I do to help? How can I reduce the stress or get this done or do this instantly? And my other client was like, oh, I thought that they'd see it as weakness if they thought that I couldn't handle the stress.
Yep. If
they like, or that I dropped the ball on this other project and so they'd think less of me. Nobody thought that at all. And it was just an instant. So it's like, these are some of the things that other businesses don't do. It's like, okay, where can you show more of you? Where can you open up? And like, the thing is, when and that one might have been perceived failure on a specific thing. We're telling this team, we want you to have the safety to try things and fail, because every fail is a going forward, right? Fail forward. And then the quicker we do it, the quicker we iterate. But then if we're scared to share something that we think could be perceived as a failure, how are they going to have the permission?
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess it's something that we also forget is that, we don't necessarily want to share our burdens and share that with everyone around us. And maybe we should not see it that way, but see it as, we're just sharing what's going on so that everyone understands why we're as we are at the moment.
Yeah, and I think we've talked about this before. It's not about, you don't have to come in and air all your dirty laundry or say all the stuff. It can be literally as much as, I've got something going on.
Yep. And
it's not you, it's just this. Yep. But also I think a lot of, I see a lot in leaders, like another new client that I picked up, they're in a more traditional service industry where there's used to wear suits and, got to be compliant and serious.
Yep.
But the leader is really, you can see, constrained. Again, star creator. What's with these stars? I just attracts like, right? And thought they couldn't show their personality and be as fun and carefree and lit up because maybe people won't think they're as trustworthy or as serious or as compliant. And like, you've got people that doesn't do that stuff. Like, they're the compliance people. Like, people come to you because they love you. How can you be more you? How can you inject, like, you can still be fun and have integrity.
Yep. Yes, definitely. And for me, it's the difference between casual and informal. You know, it's you don't have to be. And something else that I've also spoken about with my team is it's who you're dealing with as well. So having some respect with everyone else around you. So if your team, if you want to create a more informal environment, you know, not necessarily casual, but you know, a bit more informal. We don't have to wear a suit, we don't have to wear a tie or whatever it is. Yeah, that's all okay, as long as that's still projecting the right message with your team, and certainly with your customers. You know, like if you're walking into a high-rise office block in the middle of Sydney or Melbourne, and everyone in your audience is wearing a suit and tie, and you walk in board shorts and thongs, all you're doing is showing disrespect to the people you're going to visit.
Unless you're Branson.
Well, even still, I still, you know, I don't think it really matters who you are. If you're going to spend the time to go and see that audience, you know, sometimes you need to put a little more effort in and be a little more different to what you would be.
Meet them where they're at. Yeah, meet them where they're at. Like, I changed up from, like, when I was in recruitment previously, like I've talked about, was always in the pinstripe man suit. Oh yes, please. I've been dying. Cheers. Yes. Yes.
Yes.
I always wore, and mainly it definitely helped me to start off with, like, dress for the job that you want, and also for the respect. And then coming into recruitment, being a 5 foot, like, blonde miniature human at, what was I then, 24 years old or something, wanting to walk into a boardroom of suits and, like, walk into Google and get credibility. I couldn't do that dressed like your average. I couldn't go in like this, because they assign a meaning. So I started wearing, like, I wore a proper man suit. But then as I went through my career, I was like, actually, is that what I want for my team to have to go through, and is this the right thing? And then we worked on, okay, well, how do we want to show up? So there was a really nice match in between of it, and, like, how could you inject some of your personality into it? So, like, one of the guys loved crazy socks, so he'd wear his chinos, and his signature thing was a pair of, like, just out there socks, or and one of them in their blazer used to wear a pocket choof, like, again, it often matched his socks. But there was still this element of polish and care, and I think that was the end result. It was like, you need to look like you've put in an effort, and that you've almost, like, we've curated our outfit, so it looks like that we've got, and there's a certain level, like the girls, no cleavage and things like that, because that would distract the eye. So, like, those sorts of things, but it still allowed you to show who you were. Yep. And that was a big change, like, because in the recruitment industry back then, casual Fridays was a thing. And there was but again, it was still like, it was more informal Friday, like, you know, nice jeans and a collared shirt and a blazer rather than a suit. And we were like, fuck it, let's make every day casual Friday. And it was like, people were like, what do you mean? Like, you guys you don't have to wear a tie every day? I'm like, nope. As long as you look good.
Yeah. And you're still respecting everyone around you, but as you said, you're injecting that, your DNA, your little element into that workplace and that environment, and that, as you say, even the whole team becomes more comfortable because they're riding on the back of your DNA, your uniqueness.
Yeah. So when you're listening to the Tarantino thing and going, okay, how can you bring a bit more you? What else did it mean to you? Like, what came up? Where have you seen it in, say, teams on site that you feel like if they just brought a little bit more them?
I think it's a really hard one for someone stepping into a role and not necessarily having any sort of direction on what they can do and how to do it. But it can be as simple as this week I think the boys had dad jokes, didn't they? In
Yes,
the meet.
I wanted to change it up because usually we do the icebreakers, and I felt like we needed a little bit more lightheartedness. So I tasked everyone with bringing a dad joke to the meeting.
Which is fair.
And
And
but why did I do that? Where would I have got that from? So for
I've got
everyone,
great dad jokes. They're not bad ones.
no, but you like if we were gonna ask anyone on your team, and this comes from your team, like what's one of the things that makes Kyle Kyle? It's dad jokes. And so I went with I didn't say just like come up with a joke or bring something funny or bring a meme or anything. I specifically it was dad jokes because it's your team, and that's something that is a unique thing to you, something that they love about you and know about you, and it gives them something to play with. That is that again, it's that sense of belonging, of commonality.
Yeah, yeah, and it is just something. It's just bringing that sort of thing into your interactions. Like tell everyone tomorrow when you come in or Monday when you come in, bring your best dad joke. Tell me your best barbecue recipe. What's the best? Where was the best takeaway in town? Just bring something human into the interaction, and let people feel it. As the leader, if you're talking, I love my barbecue, and this weekend I cooked up brisket, and this is how I did it, and even if that inspires your team to go and try something, it's still bringing that culture and that idea into the team, and it's completely away from the things that might traditionally promote the team and make the team work, but it's the stuff that brings the team together that's
Yeah.
important.
Yeah, it's that belonging. Like Mitch and Greg, my electricians clients, that with the Super Saiyans and the Dragon Ball Z, the I was like, oh my gosh, you're gonna make me watch cartoons. I don't, and all the girls on the team were like, what is this? But when we had their whole team sit down and watch it as a team, and now it's like an inside joke, and it come from Greg and Mitch loving Dragon Ball Z. They've infused it into their whole business model, even with their clients and the team internally. And now they feel like they've got something that's a common ground, a language. And I kind of, for somehow I've managed to bring it into your team because Hayden had Super Saiyan hair on the call the other afternoon, because they heard me talking about it. But see how that's like just because the leaders brought something in, now that's another little inside joke, and it's like this inside thing that they belong to and they light up. And so I reckon I would love to see in the comments. I don't know if Ecamm's bringing in the comments for me, so we may have to respond to them afterwards. So people saw me testing the system the other day, so we're using Ecamm to stream through Restream to all of the things. But sometimes the comments don't come through. But in the comments, I'd love to know what's something that's unique to you that you either do or you think now you could do in your meetings. Like, what else could you bring into it?
We're not going to talk about the artwork that goes on around here.
Do you know the artwork that I sent you? Do you know where that came from? I drew that lovingly for Joel. Yeah.
No.
He needed to know that I cared, and I was part of the team. Yeah. So when we're looking at that, I would say to people like, start reading books. Like if you're a leader of a business, whether you're a leader of a team as in a big organization that's not your business, or whether you're the leader within a small business or you're the owner of the business, start questioning everything. Like question everything, right? How you do your meeting. Does it feel good to you? Does it feel aligned to you? Is it actually getting the result that you want? And if the answer is no, go and find 5 books or podcasts that you could listen to. Like, don't just do one and then adopt it because it's like the only thing you've done. Like, go and like, okay, cool. How else could we run them? Maybe we could do Scrum. Maybe we could do what are they called? Level 10 meetings. Maybe we could do like, and start to feel it out and create something that works for you, that's uniquely yours. Like, I guarantee, even in most massive organizations, they put a team leader in. The team leader does whatever his team leader before him did. But there's never been like, it's very rare. Sometimes there is, and there are some great organizations that go, this is the structure we run. We run Scrum and we run this. But there's a lot of places, especially engineering or trade space or service space. Technology is different because they adopt a Scrum principle or an Agile or a whatever. But most organizations, it's only you've taken on what someone else has done. It's not actually been a directive of the business of this is our operating procedure. So feel free to question it. Feel free to test it. Feel free to go, you know what? Actually, team, I'd love your feedback. These are the books I've read, or these are the podcasts I've listened to. This is what I'm thinking. Anyone else want to go away and research it and make a suggestion?
And to circle back to what you said before about, make a list of all the things that you do just because, that's what you do. I think also make a list of the things that you do that's uniquely you, and identify where it works. Identify if it is something that works. Do your jokes work or do they not? Or, does Dragon Ball upset people or does it bring them on board? Have a look at those things and don't be afraid to sort of amplify them somewhat and go, well, that works. That's the stuff that's doing the things, and I wanna make it more. I want to do more of it, and I want to have more of it.
Yeah, and just change things up. I just had a thought about. So there was an organization that didn't do Monday meetings because thought of like, no one wants a Monday meeting. When we actually talked to the team were like, I lack motivation on a Monday. And we're like, what could we do? We could do Motivation Mondays. And so it's not actually team, it's not a business thing. It's a mindset thing. Yep. So how, like, you can change it up in that regard.
Yeah, and look, so some people do need that start of week something, that change of pace from home to into work or whatever it is, and that's the kind of thing that's reliant. But it doesn't have to be the traditional ass kicking or the yelling or whatever it is, and it doesn't necessarily have to be, as you said, it doesn't have to be right. It's Monday morning, it's 9 o'clock, and here's the things, and let's look at this, and we're going, and we're going, and we're going, and we're going, and going. Yeah. It can be a little bit more of, okay, so what are you grateful about this week? What do you think is going to be the best part of this week? What's going to be our biggest hurdle? And, what can we do to make sure that we maintain our energy for the whole week before we get to tomorrow and we start talking about what's going on?
Yeah. And it could just be about connecting with the team. Like getting that connection piece, because if teamwork is such a big piece and communication may have been low or connection might have been low or the relationships are strained or whatever, maybe you could do just a quick thing on a Monday morning that connects the team as a human so that they play better together later in the week.
Yep. When it is getting busy and when it does have to, when it does matter and we do have to get things going and we do have to be on the go, at least then later in the week, we've already warmed up. We're not just walking in the door and pow, here we go.
Yeah, bang. Yeah, I love it. I'm just going to circle back to like some of the things that Tarantino was saying that I think is really good with building teams. And it was around the profiling, like making your role fit the person. So like he said, I wrote this role for this person, right?
So you had an avatar in mind as you was writing the role, and then went looking for similar people. And it's what you said at the start was, so who's the dream team? LeBron James is on the dream team. So you're never necessarily going to have him on your team. But okay, now what's the characteristics that I'm looking for in that? Who resonates with that? So, it might not necessarily be that the people you put on that list are going to be the people you employ, but it's building a picture of what that avatar is, what that person looks like, what their attributes are, and it makes it a lot easier for everyone else to identify it. It's really easy to go, I want them to be punctual and accurate and the real boring sort of stuff. But to sort of go, I want them to act like this. I want them to be like this person. These people really exude the DNA that I'm looking for in this particular role, means that everyone else can start to have that picture and understand what it is that you're looking for.
Yeah. Rather than that hard skill set, it's like, I want someone that can have real conversations. I want someone who can have empathy, or that can think outside the square. And this is an example of it. But the other thing I really liked about it is writing the role for the person. So if you've already got the team, or even once you've got them, writing the role for them. And we talked about this with Tours of Duty. But that's unique. Like, Tarantino wrote Vincent Vega's role, and my mind was blown watching Reservoir Dogs last night, going, Vic Vega, ha! And then I was like, oh my god, I can't believe I never actually put all of those things together before. Like Marcellus, I'm like, what? Like, okay, but he had this, he had a framework to write the baseline character or tour of duty job description based on the avatar. But then when the right person came along for the job, then it was slightly rewritten for that person's genius. Like, you can't have Travolta and not have him dance. Like, and enter the Jackrabbit Slims scene. Do you know what I mean? So it's also going, right, okay, I've got this baseline. I know the avatar. I've written my job description for my avatar, and I know what success looks like. But then going, when I find the actual human, how do I bring that genius out more? The uniquely them piece. Because what we find is people have a job description, hard facts, and they try to put a person in the box, and they don't let them have their unique them. So what can you do to bring out the unique you in them? Like, how do you allow their own personality to shine?
You really, it's quite a tough one, and it's not a magic pill. It's not an overnight fix. It's stuff that,
really,
like most things.
No black magic box.
Rum is not the answer as well.
Yes.
So
I don't know that for certain because I didn't buy the rum, so I dispute that.
Maybe you should try.
Kyle's suggestion to my problems last night was rum. Usually is the answer.
Rum is the answer. So it's not a magic pill. So we can't just go to them. So what do you want, and how do you want it to be? And we actually need to get to understand them. We need to learn the things that light them up. We need to learn about what unique skills outside of what we can see can translate into work that we want them to do, or that we need them to do, or that the business needs to do. And it might mean that it might mean that your tradie that's really, really great at putting up frames is also your guy that's doing your social media.
Well, yeah. Your guy that's really, really, really good at fixing hydraulic pumps and fishing is also great at building a following.
Yeah, and finding, allowing that to come out and allowing the space for that means that, for someone that's interested, they get to light up on both sides, and they get to have fun and enjoy it, and the work becomes more meaningful because they're driving it with the stuff that they see as fun or interesting or whatever. Yeah.
Well, it's the hierarchy of needs again, right? Variety, consistency, contribution. So if they feel like they're contributing on a bigger level, but they've also got the variety of not just doing the same job every day, we can really help them. And it's the growth piece, like they feel like they're growing because they're challenged a little bit more. That's where we can see them really blossom, right? One of the other teams that I work with, they had someone that, when we profiled, was a Blaze personality doing a 90% steel job and wondering why she was like a shrinking violet. And it was like, oh, what can we do to fix this? And how can we add more blaze into it? But then her side hustle was like launching this catering business. And then we're doing an on-site for all of the team and we need a caterer. The joy, like how stoked she was to be able to serve her team, but the recognition from the team for like just absolutely magical. And then going and doing all of the other stuff didn't seem like it was done like this because cup was so filled.
Yep.
That it wasn't that energy vampire of the opposite energy tasks. The battery was so overfull that it didn't matter. It was like bang, bang, bang. But when you're already depleted, and so you can't always support somebody's side hustle, but even, like you said, social media or even just having people, if they've got a creative brain, allowing them to come to another team's meeting to inject a little bit of personality into it. Like you see it with Google, like how they one day a week they can go into another team just to test the waters, even just to see, and the ideas of like it's so beneficial to a team when we get someone from in a business, we get an outsider's perspective, someone that's not usually in the shit, to come in.
Yep. And cross-pollinate it all. Definitely.
Yeah.
So I'm feeling like this is a really interesting point where we've been totally inspired by Tarantino to talk about teams, and we've stayed away from torture though.
Yeah.
There's no
Why?
torture scene.
There is no torture scene? I don't know.
We're all talking.
Have you been in this week with me? If you can't see my back. Oh, maybe I look like a torture victim.
Oh,
Look at that.
you have been cupped.
I have been cupped,
So
but I forgot that I'd been
that
cupped.
it wasn't from beatings.
It wasn't from beatings. I wasn't getting flogged. Although yesterday I went out wearing a backless dress, thinking that I was going to be cold and be wearing a jacket all day. And it wasn't cold. And then I forgot that I had a back that looked like that and wondered why everyone was staring at me like I was some sort of weirdo, or that they should hug me or take me off somewhere. Okay, where are you going with the torture line? Because I'm running a line.
Well, it was more that we don't actually have to torture our staff. I just thought it was quite.
They just
funny
torture
that
us.
It does seem like that some days. But like we've Tarantino, a critical part is a torture scene in the movies, and he spoke about that was one of the unique parts of his DNA. So I just thought it was funny that we're talking about all these things not to torture our staff, and we've been inspired by Tarantino.
By Tarantino's torture. Yeah. There was when I was watching Reservoir Dogs though as well, like there was just so many relationships to building teams, like in terms of when I built that team, like when they're picking who they need on the team to do the heist and like the different characteristics. But again, it came back to, and all of it comes back to playing to the genius and the unique strengths. It's like, oh well, we've got to put up with that loose unit because we really need that skill set. Now, I don't say in a team, don't put up with loose units because you need a certain skill set. You can find more. But
it's an interesting point that we still need to be tolerant of everyone in the team, because we're not all the same. We're not everyone's going to be the same. Not everyone's going to be an open personality or a closed personality, and not everyone's going to be quiet, or not everyone's going to be loud. And we do need that tolerance in the team, and we have to have that understanding that we actually need that person, even though they're not exactly like me. We still need that person in our team, because that's what makes our whole team awesome.
Yeah, and it's that respect of the differences. Like, a heist can't happen if each person doesn't have, like, if there's not that unique skill set. Like, if you don't have someone that can do crowd control, you can't pull off the heist, right? So you've got to think about, like, within an organization, if you didn't have someone that was great with the detail and the timing and like the checking of things, then nothing would get done on time. Everything would be half-assed, and there'd be a fucking million errors in it, right? But conversely, if you left it to someone that's so bogged down in the detail and that, then nothing would ever get out. So this understanding and respect of the different players within the team, like, so I think we have talked about this before, but it comes down when I talk about profiling and making your dream team and understanding it. It's like, but wherever you look at your team and go, do you have a Mr. Pink? Do you have a Mr. White? Like, I don't know who needs a Mr. Blonde, but he's the psycho, by the way. He's the one that goes just killing everyone. But he's the eco. But do you have a balanced team, or are you too heavily weighted on one side of the table? Like if you look at is shit getting, I'm mirrored, so is shit getting done or not? And going, okay, is it because I've got too many people and not enough doy people? Or have we got all the, like, often we see this with products or like services, they've got this amazing product service, but nobody knows about it because in your case they don't have a Gav out there to tell the world.
Yep. Or a whole team's sharing the news, or are we getting started on a big wild project but not getting it finished because we don't have anyone that does the detail bit that can actually sit there and get those final details out, or is everyone just head in the sky? Oh, look at these great ideas, shiny things.
Or even like someone on the tempo, the timing people, like keeping the detail people going, okay, that's great, but you got to get that detail done by now. You can't just keep going deeper and deeper. Yep. And you guys over here, you need to pick this up and like wind it back. So yeah, making sure that you've looked at how you compose your team, and even if you don't, if it's not someone's natural personality though, that someone is able to take the responsibility for it, like going, okay, in this particular project, who's gonna play this piece? Even in team meetings, like who's gonna play the timekeeper? Because if you know that you've got a really blaze personality running a meeting, who's gonna keep the pace? If you know you've got a real steel-based person that's too heavy in the detail stuff, running the meeting, and then everyone's just like, oh God, kill me now. Whose responsibility is to hold the energy?
Yep.
And you can give people, and I think that's something else that's can be quite unique to meetings, because in the old structure, it's like the team leader runs the meeting and it's just on that person's shoulder to do it. Whereas when you deconstruct the norm, you can kind of go, actually, your role's to keep pace, your role's to keep the energy, your role's to make sure that we get all the shit done. And you can actually make it more of a team meeting rather than a dictator.
And going to the whole network idea rather than hierarchy, having a network where everyone's got a role to play in this. It's not, I'm not just here to dictate things to you and bark at you and everything else, but okay, so we're all working together so that we can make this meeting happen, but happen efficiently. So we've got a timekeeper, we've got someone that's keeping it on track, we've got the details where we need them, but everyone's actually playing a role in this network rather than just a hierarchy of thou shalt do this.
Yeah. Oh, wouldn't that be a lovely life? What else did you... well, that they all do what I tell them to do. Yeah. Oh, no. What else did you take out of either... Did you do your homework, firstly?
No.
That's a no.
I do know Pulp Fiction rather well, though. For me, I think the biggest thing was bringing your own DNA. So whether that's your business, whether that's your team, whether that's just the job that you're working on. For me, it was when Tarantino said bringing your own DNA into your project. that was the trigger for me, where I sort of went, well, that was something that I know I certainly struggled with in the past of, but everyone else does these things. I've got to do these things because that's how we run a meeting, or that's how we run a business, or that's how we interact with an accountant, or that's how we interact with the client, or whatever it is. And the reason that we gain credibility in our world is because of the unique DNA that we bring, and it's not because we're doing everything the same as everyone else. It's because that we've found something that works, that's different. And I think that was the thing for me, was bring your own DNA, bring it.
Yeah.
Don't be loose, and don't be wild, and don't be disrespectful, but bring your own DNA, own that DNA, bring that into your world, and just absolutely embed it into what you want to happen.
Well, I love that, because in my program I call it the culture DNA, culture with a K, why not? Culture DNA, and it's like I've been working with a client actually just before this, and they have far beyond for a small size business, only 11 employees. They actually have a DNA doc. I'm like, oh my God, you are my people. You call it DNA. And they have vision, they had mission, they had values. So like all the old construct stuff, and some great stuff in there. But it also, a lot of it looked like it was put together by a marketing department. Like, great, I could see the elements in there. And I know, and I'm blessed to know the person, and I've worked with them before, so I know that she's in there. But we're going like, how actually can we make it more you and more them? Like, how do you extract this and more humanize it, and make it more like DNA rather than vision, mission, values, like, and so it's evolved now into purpose, mission, 5-year session, virtues, and just even that, again, changing that mindset of the languaging to be different gives the space. She's like, oh, the vision is supposed to be like this. I'm like, ah, fuck that, throw that in the bin. Like, it should be like this. Like, let's talk about. And then the conversation started flowing in terms of, okay, well, how does that resonate? And it was like, oh wow, actually, that person doesn't even live, like, they're just not even aligned with our values. They don't operate. And when they did this, it's like this. And it's like, okay, well, how can you infuse that into what you do? And there was this whole now new client scorecard that's going to be used for how they know if they're doing the right, like really living up to their values with their customer. And they're going to survey the customer to say what's important to you, and then how do we make sure that we're living up to it, and then how do we really live that? And now they've got a whole new, not only DNA about their inside culture, it's becoming the DNA of how they deal with their clients. And I can tell you, it is just going to absolutely set them apart from any competitors, because her real why and passion about what she does is now infused into all of those things. Whereas before it was like, yeah, that was there, but they didn't actually know how to, like, it was like, yeah, this is how we operate, but it wasn't really like, this is how we actually integrate.
Yep. What's the tactical steps that make us look like that or be like that?
Yeah.
And that's certainly something that's hard to do as a team leader or a business leader, is to break apart the big airy fairy picture that's the guiding light, the virtues or whatever that's that guiding light, and then turning that into the tactical things that we can almost measure, so that we know that we're marching the right way. It's, I don't know that measure's the right description, but we want to use those virtues, and the reason for calling them virtues rather than values is that virtues are something to strive for. This is what we're aiming towards. So what are the actions or the tactical things that we do each day that march us towards that bigger picture?
And then again, for those that haven't heard Kyle and I talk about this before, it's because we believe that values are people's beliefs, and we can't force our beliefs upon somebody else, where a virtue is something that we can collectively decide, and a virtue by virtue is something you strive towards, rather than it just being that not always that innate thing. It's like a decision with intent, and that you actually decide that you're working towards, rather than, because sometimes a value can be just based from programming and we haven't even questioned where it's come from. whereas
Yep.
a virtue is a decision.
And it's not really fair for us to embed as a team leader or as a business owner. It's not really our role to embed values on people. Yeah, we should be employing people that come with their own set of values, and that they shouldn't have to change their values because of oh, I'm now working in this business, so now I have to believe all of these things. But it's certainly something that we want in our business, to be striving for a certain achievement or an outcome, or a something that we want to see happen. And that's why I think the virtues is a much better description.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I see the difference when we communicate it to teams, the difference in them and how they feel like they can contribute, especially when we talk about those layers of how a virtue, like, because often with a value, it's a bit hard, like people struggle to figure out how do you live it. Whereas when we talk about the virtues and the different levels of it, and the striving and the examples of how you go about this, and it just and getting the team involved into what does it mean to you and how would you strive towards it, that embodiment is so much deeper.
Absolutely. Like, so for us, the Planet Plus thing. So, we didn't go out and say that we're tree hugging greenies that love every single leaf and plant and animal on the earth. What we said is that we're Planet Plus. And so the underlying thing for that is that so long as you're actually thinking about that, like, are you thinking about how much plastic you're using? Are you thinking about do I need to print things? Am I using a keep cup instead of like? Am I walking outside with a normal cup rather than getting a throwaway cup? All of these things help us achieve the virtues and help us make those steps towards the virtues, rather than I love trees and I hug trees every day.
Yeah, because when we were talking about that, and I was like, oh, we want to be more eco. Then it was like, but we work with minds, so that's like a disconnect, and that was a disconnect. But when we were like, no, we're Planet Plus, and it's like we just want to make better choices. Like where we can, we want to make better choices. And I loved it because I think it wasn't long after that Joel did his road trip to South Australia, and then he sent us that photo that he'd taken a big water cooler full of water on the road with him because he used to used to buy a bottle of water at every servo trip. And he was like, oh my gosh, I can just take A, saves money, B, saves planet. And was making his billy with his keep cup. And I was like, I couldn't be more proud. But it was just that simple
small steps.
Yeah. Like just that small, and then if you, like for me, we always talk about the keep cups. It's like my one little thing. But my client Greg now, whenever I go there, he also loves bulletproof, and he knows I won't have my bulletproof unless I've got my keep cup. And then so, I used to roll in, and because in the van I always have extra keep cups. I'd stop and get the boys a bulletproof, and I'd roll in with all the keep cups, and then I'd be like, okay, got to give them all back before I leave. And then I turned up the other day, and he's like, I'm gonna get Tian to get me a bulletproof. You want one? And I was like, yes, please. And then I was like, oh, I don't have another keep cup for you today. And he was like, ta-da! And he bought a husk, and he's like, and so now he's got one. And I'm like, if I just make that one small win every time.
Yep. But that's the whole purpose of the virtues, is that every step that we take is just taking a step closer towards that. It's a never achievable, but always something to work towards. Like Planet Plus, it's not something that we get to the top of the summit and we high five the world and go, we achieve that. It's something that we do every single day.
Yeah, and it's just those little decisions every step. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Was there something else in there?
Well, if it's typical Tarantino style, we should jump somewhere back to the middle of the story before we go to the beginning and then finish.
Yeah. What I heard there is chop somebody's ear off. What?
Oh, and torture them. So it was quite it's quite an interesting segue into teams to start with a Tarantino interview. And I think the key thing is that no matter what your team is that you're always bringing your own DNA. You're always trying to bring that uniqueness to it. And that's what makes you great. That's what then helps make your team great. And then, just keep doing it. Just keep bringing that uniqueness to the world.
Yeah. Be you. Everybody else is taken.
Yeah, definitely.
And how can you, and I think that's the mic drop, yeah? Boom.
Boom.
And we're done.
And
awesome.
We're done.
And we're done. Cut. Awesome.
So, if everybody is enjoying what we're talking about, please remember to subscribe wherever you are capturing us. We are on YouTube, we are on Facebook, we are on Spotify, we are on Apple. Hang on, what is it called? I'm not an Apple person, so wherever you might find us, make sure you subscribe. There is a website. There will be a link in the bottom there. So if you're interested in capturing these moments right before they get out to the world, please subscribe and we'll get the most information to you. And finally, the most important thing, tell us your favourite beers. We do want to know what we should be sharing on a Friday.
You've got a Bintang holder. Oh, wait.
I've got a Bintang holder.
Oh, I thought I had my commune one.
What beers are going on in the world. So share your favourites in the comments as well. Apart from that, have a wonderful Friday and a wonderful weekend. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Cheers, guys.